Hi, everyone, and welcome to No Cold War Perspectives, which we give you in just 10 minutes a little bit about a perspective on current issues in peace, war, and geopolitics. I'm super excited to hear from Dae-Han today about some of the things that have been happening in South Korea. So welcome. My name is Mika. I'm a member of No Cold War in the coordinating committee. And joining me today is Dae-Han Song, who is from South Korea, who's based in Seoul, and who is a member of the International Strategy Center. And he's also an independent researcher, intellectual in his own right, following peace and activism in the Northeast Asia, and has written an amazing dossier on US pressure in Northeast Asia that you can find on the tricontinental.org. So, welcome, Dae-Han, and thank you. So, Dae-Han, first question. You were out on the streets a couple of months ago when the developments around the martial law that was initiated by the then president of Korea were happening. What has been happening since? And maybe you can give a bit of information about what happened to make this a situation in the first part.
Sure. I think it's the process basically in about December 4th, President Yoon declared martial law. And it basically it ended up the National Assembly gathered despite there being troops that were mobilized, special troops that were mobilized to the National Assembly. The National Assembly managed to get into the uh, National Assembly members managed to get into the National Assembly and then effectively vote to end the martial law, right? Ever since then, basically, Yoon, I think there were different things that he was trying to do, and effectively they failed. And by the morning time, he took back the martial law that he had declared, right? Uh, uh, Ever since then, there's been like massive protests in South Korea that in many ways are reminiscent of the 2016 candlelight uprising. So just like massive level protests, like a million people, 1.5 million people out on the streets. Um, just to give you an example, there's 50 million people in Korea. So that's like about like 2% of the Korea's population was like congregated in one spot, calling for the impeachment of President Yoon. Basically, the National Assembly didn't manage to pass. Uh, the opposition parties control about 192 seats, which means that they're eight short of being able to have enough votes to pass the impeachment motion, and they did pass the impeachment motion ultimately, just because there was so much pressure, and they were able to get a break off from the conservatives to vote alongside them. So where are we now? At this point, Yoon is going is under trial by the Constitutional Court, and likely the uh, Constitutional Court will have some time to deliberate. And when if the verdict is impeachment, like confirming the impeachment from that motion that the National Assembly had passed, then there has to be an election within 60 days. Likely, there's a high chance that the candidate that wins will be the leader of the Democratic Party here in South Korea, and his name is Lee Jae-myung. So uh, the possibility of impeachment is very high. If you look at the last three conservative presidents, they have either been impeached. If Yoon gets impeached, then there'll be two presidents impeached while in office and another one thrown in jail after leaving office. So literally the last three conservative presidents have all been would be completely delegitimized if Yoon is impeached. So they're in a fight for their lives. Um,
And can I
and
ask
yeah.
why? Why do you think that they're in a fight of their lives? Why did he take these extreme measures at that time?
Sure. I think like there's kind of like the position that he puts, which is that there was like election fraud that happened. These are kind of like his
Mm,
uh, explanations, right? Or his justifications. The other one was to say that the Democratic Party and the opposition parties were blocking uh, were basically cutting his suggestions, budget proposals. His budget proposals were not getting passed, right? He was trying to get more discretionary spending for like for certain agencies, and in effect, uh, they were not willing to allow that to pass because they had enough votes to block it, right? Um, there's like a certain standard for martial law, and in effect, you're declaring war on your people, right? You're saying that society is in such a state of disorder or such a state of whatnot that basically you have to bring in the military to establish order. And to say that it's because the National Assembly was blocking like his budget, uh, trying to pass a budget, it's like completely ridiculous, right? There were a lot of controversies there were controversies around corruption, around his around the first lady. You know, the National Assembly kept pushing for bills for a special investigation around like stock manipulation, bribes, whatnot that the first lady was caught up in. And Yoon basically vetoed it again and again and again, right? And I think there was a thought that the next vote was gonna pass, mostly because it was costing the Conservative Party dearly to back because the Conservative Party was just losing support whenever Yoon was like vetoing these bills, right? Um, and so there was a thought that in effect the bill would pass. And then also there was the possibility that Myung-taek-yoon, this power broker behind the scenes, um, that was being investigated, was gonna reveal these tapes. So that's kind of like a little bit of the different thoughts about why he did it.
and how does that, because we work in an organization for peace and we think about bigger geopolitical issues. What has been the impact internationally, and how has this move also maybe cemented certain advances for not only the US, because we've seen that there are more and more, naval operations and different things that are happening that kind of are on the coast of South Korea. But what has been the international impact of this, and what do you think that this moment means, I guess, for peace and for reducing the advancements of the US war efforts in Northeast Asia?
Sure. So likely, if there's elections, there will likely, if Yoon is impeached, which is highly likely, then there will be elections within 60 days. The chance that Lee Jae-myung is gonna win is high. The Democratic Party is gonna win is high. Um, and I think in many ways, Yoon leaving office is a huge blow to the United States, right? Because Yoon was, like was willing to bend over backwards for the United States, right? Was willing to forego claims for historical justice against Japanese colonialism for the sake of uh, establishing the trilateral security cooperation between the United States, Japan, and South Korea, which the United States had wanted for decades, right? But was unable to achieve it because Japan had carried out these war crimes and colonial exploitation and sexual violence against Koreans during colonial period and uh, had not yet come to terms with it, right? And so that was always like the stumbling block. But Yoon, in effect, kind of like bypassed all that. And he did it because he has a very pro-US stance, and he was getting a lot. He was, the US was basically petitioning him around that. Yoon was also like very pro-NATO, right? I think in many regards, the Democratic Party has a more balanced approach, tries to balance between, I guess, if one says between China and the United States, right? So will all this change with the Democratic Party? Uh, I wouldn't say quite so because there's a lot of structural, despite like what the Democratic Party has tried to do as regards to like North Korea, inner Korean relations, there has always been a sort of like structural limit, right? And the structural limit is historical, right? It has to do with the conservative base that would basically have uh, that would just rise up because they're staunchly anti-North Korea, right? Um, it would have to do, I'd imagine that the United States would just completely punish South Korea if it tried to chart an independent course. So in the past, like for example, like Moon Jae-in, a lot of the things that he did was he tried to work with Trump to basically, in effect, flatter and in effect make different concessions, various concessions to Trump in order to get Trump into the negotiating table with North Korea. And of course, that led to a series of events that really that seemed like that were pregnant with possibility. But of course, at the last minute, Trump just walked out of the deal and basically just completely derailed the whole process. I think the leading candidate, Lee Jae-myung, he even said that we could be progressive, like on social and cultural issues, uh, while being conservative on like issues around like security, issues around economy, whatnot. I imagine that the alignment would be something along the lines of Trump wanting to get into the limelight again around like North Korea. I think what Trump did in the first round completely, I imagine, like eliminated trust that North Korea has with Trump. I imagine North Korea will go along to certain degrees, but when Trump starts making the hard asks, like for example, if Trump asks like North Korea to whatever to separate itself or distance itself from China, I don't imagine that. Uh, my thought is that it would not do it because why would North Korea trust Trump? I guess my answer is that what comes out will likely be better than Yoon, just because Yoon was so terrible. But I'm not sure how dramatically things can change.
Thank you so much for giving your insights, especially because you are there on the ground, listening and hearing what people are saying, as well as reading what's happening overall. And we know that here at No Cold War, South Korea is a pivotal nexus in which the US activates a lot of its kind of geopolitical aspirations in the region, alongside the Philippines, alongside Japan. So for those who don't follow us, this is Dae-Han and Mika. We are both part of No Cold War, which is a peace activist platform, and we have a network of people around the world who are trying to push for peace in a time when particularly the US tries to lead with war. And you will see just after this deck of where you can find us and follow us. But we are on social media, we have a website, and we hope that we can get more people who are interested in peace and active in this discussion to join us for our perspectives. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.